You're watching Euronews now. I'm Takumbo Salako with your top stories. 2 months after being elected, President Emmanuel Macron suffers an embarrassing reversal of fortunes by losing his parliamentary majority. The French opposition says it now wants to force the government to resign. EU foreign ministers are meeting to discuss further support for Ukraine and Russia's blockade on grain exports. Also on the programme, we'll discuss Germany's highly controversial plans to put coal back on the burner to reduce its reliance on Russian oil and gas.
French President Emmanuel Macron has suffered a major election defeat, losing his absolute majority in Parliament. The recently re-elected president now faces uncertainty over how to strike alliances in order to push through key legislation this summer. Although his centrist Ensemble coalition won the most seats, a newly formed alliance of the left, far left and Green parties called NUP has come second, with Marine Le Pen's far-right party making major gains to come in third. Prime Minister Elisabeth Borne said the situation was unprecedented.
Never before has the National Assembly seen such a configuration under the Fifth Republic. This situation poses a risk for our country in view of the challenges we face both nationally and internationally. As of tomorrow, we will start working on building an action-oriented majority.
Far-left leader Jean-Luc Mélenchon, who successfully brought mainstream parties into his broad-based alliance, said the presidential party had suffered a total rout.
It's at the end, and before anything else, it's a complete failure of the Macronie, a moral failure. These are the people who lectured everyone non-stop and said they would be the barrier to the far right. And the result? They reinforced it.
The big surprise was Marine Le Pen's National Rally Party, which hiked up their 8 seats to more than 80. The significance wasn't lost on Le Pen.
We have achieved our objectives of making Emmanuel Macron a minority president in order to protect the country from the reign of a single party without control in the exercise of power.
A further disappointment was the turnout. 53% didn't bother to vote, either in protest or indifference.
Well, let's get more on this story now. We can talk to our international correspondent, Annalise Borges, who joins us from the French capital. Annalise, a huge blow for Emmanuel Macron's party. It's still the biggest party in Parliament, we should say. But how big of a blow will this be for it going forward? And also, how big of a victory is this for Marine Le Pen's far-right national rally?
Well, Tokes, as you mentioned, it's a big blow for Emmanuel Macron, not only for his plans to implement some of those ambitious reforms he wasn't able to deliver during his first 5 years in power, but also because of the shift that this represents, a shift in the balance of power, a shift in power from the hands of Emmanuel Macron back into the National Assembly. Also, many political analysts here in this country are reading these results as effectively a vote against Emmanuel Macron and his vision for France. 5 years ago, the French president had created a political movement that on its own was able to get 306 seats in the National Assembly. Fast forward 5 years and here we are with a government that struggled to get 245. So that shows how debilitated this government really is. Meanwhile, as you mentioned, Marine Le Pen's national rally got extraordinary results yesterday with 89 seats, multiplying by 10 their presence in the National Assembly. That is significant because that will give them more voice and more weight in the political debate here in this country. But not only, this will also represent a very important boost in their financing. They will get some 10 million euros a year because of those seats. And of course, that will be very welcome in a party that has some 24 billion euros in debt.
And Annalise, what about Emmanuel Macron's reformist agenda? What's likely to happen next?
Well, according to the French Prime Minister Elisabeth Borne, negotiations start right now in order to work out what she described as a majority of action to be able to guarantee stability here in France and push through some of those reforms. But it won't be easy, Tokes. It remains to be seen whether Emmanuel Macron's group will have to cobble together support for each one of those reforms or whether they will be able to negotiate a more permanent base of support. These reforms, as you mentioned, are very difficult, controversial even. He plans to reform the pension system here in this country. He plans to implement some tax cuts. The next few weeks and months will be challenging for Emmanuel Macron, who also lost some government ministers. So there will be a reshuffle no matter what. So the French president is certainly disappointed this Monday, but according to his administration, they will push through with their agenda no matter what.
NATO's chief has warned Western countries that they must be ready to offer long-term support to Kyiv. 4 months into Russia's war in Ukraine, Jens Stoltenberg told German daily newspaper Bild that the West should be in this for the long haul. We must prepare for the fact that it could take years, he said. We must not let up in supporting Ukraine, even if the costs are high, not only for military support, but also because of rising energy and food prices. On Sunday, Ukraine's president and his advisers claimed that Russia is now trying to make Kharkiv in Ukraine's northeast and the country's second largest city a new front line in the war. Within hours, Moscow's Ministry of Defense announced that Russian missiles had struck a Kharkiv tank repair plant. The ministry spokesman also claimed that up to 20 vehicles supplied by the West had been destroyed in the last 10 days. Meanwhile, Russia's attack on the eastern Donbass region goes on. Residents in the city of Lysychansk are forced to shelter and live in basements in dire conditions, having to withstand cold temperatures at night while food and water sources are limited. Most of them want to leave, but the constant shelling is making that impossible.
Last week, the European Commission made the historic move to recommend making Ukraine a candidate for EU membership. But the bloc's member states will make the final decision. That is one of the topics up for discussion as European foreign ministers meet later today. Our correspondent, May McMahon, has more from Brussels.
European foreign affairs ministers are meeting in Luxembourg this morning in order to prepare their bosses, i.e. European heads of state and government, for a European summit taking place this Thursday and Friday here in Brussels. Coming in this morning, ministers expressed their support and solidarity for Ukraine, with the French Minister for Foreign Affairs calling on EU heads of state and government this Thursday and Friday to fully endorse the opinion and recommendation of the European Commission that was presented last Friday to offer Ukraine candidacy status for EU membership. She also expressed the importance of preparing a 7th package of sanctions against Russia in order to put pressure on the Russian President Vladimir Putin to stop the war. And the Estonian Foreign Affairs Minister expressed the importance of today's meeting to not just talk about sanctions, but also talk about the famine and the food shortages that was now existing across the globe because of that war and the Russian invasion. Press conference is expected at around 4 o'clock this afternoon. Maeve McMahon, Euronews, Brussels.
As heat waves blaze across Europe, so too do its forests. Wildfires near Berlin burned more than 200 hectares of forested land, with army helicopters and 500 emergency personnel working to bring the flames under control. Strong winds on Sunday helped the fire spread further and prompted evacuations in the Brandenburg area. Germany is not alone, however. In France, artillery shooting during military training sparked fires west of the Conger camp in the Var department on Saturday morning, calming down by midnight. Firefighters were unable to act for much of the day as the fire moved through an area scattered with unexploded mines. And they don't stop there. The Navarre region in northern Spain is experiencing several ferocious fires. The scorching heat, coupled with the strong gusts of wind, which have reached up to 100 kilometers an hour at some points, is making the work of firefighters ever more grueling.
Still lots more to come on the programme. We're going to take a brief break right now, but don't go anywhere. We'll be back in a moment.